TAC Planning Chair, now that Scott has taken a different position and moved on. I work with Dakota County, and I'll be chairing this group as well as the TPP work group for those of you that stay on and follow that meeting. So thank you everyone for attending, and like I said, getting here right on time. The first item of business is the approval of the agenda, and apologies again as with my newness. Jed, I forget, does this one a roll call vote?
No, this is a prompt for changes. There's no vote needed if there are any changes.
All right, does anyone have any changes to the agenda then? Okay, seeing none, then the agenda is approved. All right, so then moving on, the second item, this one is a roll call vote, is the approval of the December 14th, 2023 minutes. So hopefully everybody has had a chance to take a look at those. Before I ask for a motion, does anyone have any edits or changes? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
This is Dave Burns. I will make a motion to approve the December 14th, 2023 TAC Planning Meeting Minutes.
All right, thanks, Dave. Do I have a second?
This is Casey Atkins with Hennepin County. I can second.
All right, thanks. We have a motion from Dave Burns, a second from Casey Atkins. Without any further discussion, Jed, will you please take the roll?
Jack Porcelain, Anoka County. Jesse Struve, Brooklyn Park.
Aye.
Jack Johansson, Carver County.
Aye.
Charlie Howley, Chanhassen. Gina Mitico, Dakota County.
Aye.
Casey Atkins, Hennepin County.
Aye.
Bridget Reef, Mac, or alternate.
Is there Gillis? Aye.
Michael Larson, Community Development.
Aye.
David Burns, MTS.
Aye.
Patrick Haney, Metro Transit.
Aye.
Kathleen Mayel, Minneapolis.
Aye.
Jake Reuter, MnDOT.
Aye.
Innocent AO, MPCA.
Aye.
Kevin Roggenbuck, Ramsey County.
Aye.
Bill Dermody, St. Paul. Terry Dill, Scott County.
Aye.
Grace Almeida, Suburban Transit.
Aye.
Elaine Katsukos, TAB.
Aye.
Sarah Allen, Washington County.
Aye.
Madam Chair, there were 16 ayes, no noes, and no abstentions.
All right, thanks, Jed. Thanks, everyone. The next item is if there's any public comment on committee business. I'm not aware of anyone that registered, Jed.
Correct. No one registered to comment.
Okay. If there is anyone that arrived and has a public comment, please make yourself known. All right, seeing none. We will move on to the business item that we have, which is the review of the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport 2040 Long-Term Comprehensive Plan. And I believe we have Joe from Met Council staff who will be leading the presentation.
Hi, yeah, Gina, thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. We can get right into it.
Okay, sounds good. I'll turn it over to you. Thanks, Joe.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. So I will be presenting the final draft MSP long-term comp plan today and providing an overview and findings of the document related to the Region Development Guide and the TPP. Eric Gillis and Dana Nelson from MAC are here to answer any follow-up questions. I'll try to keep this about 15 minutes, and so we have some time for question and answers with Eric and Dana as we get there. So I'm going to jump right in. If I can, there we go. So real quick, just want to take a look at a Minnesota statute that both requires this plan and also requires a council's review and approval of this plan. So this is not a federally mandated process. It's a state statute tasks the council to both plan for the regional aviation system by preparing the regional aviation plan and also ensuring the aviation is included and considered in local comprehensive plans and also long-term airport comprehensive plans. State statute also requires regional airports to produce and update their long-term comprehensive plans, and then Met Council reviews and approves those airport plans, or for the two places that are not MAC, which are South St. Paul and Forest Lake, are included in their community comprehensive plans. What is a long-term comprehensive plan? So long-term comprehensive plans are a required under the aviation planning process, as mentioned. They're a 20-year planning document. They are periodically updated as scheduled in the TPP. They're used to identify needed projects, define operational parameters, and assess environmental and financial requirements for the airport. They are required to be consistent with Thrive MSP 2040 and conform to the TPP, and they're also used as a basic input to update of the aviation system plan and also used in local plan reviews as well. So real quick planning overview for the 2040 plan here. So this plan was delayed due to the pandemic for quite a while, about a year and a half. And so that's why you'll see in this plan, the data baseline of the study start is 2018 and maybe not something more recent like you'd think. So it actually started in 2019 and it took to 2023 with that COVID delay. And so that's why we're here now. The plan outlines planned airport activity, including passenger boardings and operations and cargo activity, and planned investments to accommodate that forecast activity. It also includes high-level environmental impacts from these preferred alternatives as well. Public engagement was really done throughout the process. We'll kind of look and see what that looked like in a little bit here, but it included a stakeholder advisory panel set up specifically for the plan, included public surveys and events, included city and committee media updates, including the Met Council. Eric was here last year, I believe, in the summertime to give an update on the plan as well, and also includes a public comment period that we'll look at, that we included the responses to in this business item. The existing conditions at MSP, so it's classified as a large hub airport, and its primary role and primary use are really that primary commercial service for the region and state. Its size is just under 3,000 acres, located in the area, Fort Snelling unincorporated area between Minneapolis, Richfield, Bloomington, and St. Paul. Just 29 aircraft based at the airport today. Also looking at annual operations, we included both the 2018 baseline year for the plan and also the pandemic, kind of the peak of the pandemic to show the impact on operations. So 2018, we saw 407,000 aircraft operations, and in 2020, just 246,000 operations. The runway lengths, there's 4 runways at the airport, ranging from 8,000 to 11,000 feet, can handle just about any aircraft out there. Got instrument landing systems, air traffic control tower, and also note MSP is one of the largest concentrations of employment in the state. About 20,000 workers are on site at any one day at the airport. So pretty significant concentration of employee. Moving ahead, looking at activity forecasts. So again, big part of the comprehensive plan here is to kind of forecast those activities that are for both operations and passengers. As forecasts were originally made prior to the impact of COVID, these forecasts were revised through the planning process to model a recovery period. Overall, there was no change to the 2040 end result for passenger boardings. However, operations have been revised lower from what was originally shown here. And so we can see here by 2040, the forecast is about 28 million enplanements. So enplanements means passengers boarding planes at the airport. So 28 million passenger boardings by 2040 compared to about 19.8 million in 2019 before the pandemic. We're expecting about 401,000 tons of cargo to be moved to the airport by 2040 compared to about 252,000 in 2019. And then finally, about 510,000 aircraft operations by 2040 compared to about 411,000 in 2019. Note on operations, so we actually saw our peak in operations in 2005, and that was connected when Northwest Airlines was still using MSP as their main hub and a lot of connections through there. So even by 2040, we probably will not be getting up to that peak we've already seen in the past, which is something to note. And also just another note, the previous long-term comprehensive plan actually forecast 630,000 operations by 2030. So these forecast operations have been revised significantly lower, and we'll kind of again explore why that's happening a little bit here just quickly. So again, forecasts show more passengers to cargo than ever before, but operations remain well below the peaks. And one of the biggest connections to this is that aircraft fleet mix, as mentioned here. So what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of regional jets move up to larger aircraft, and so they're running fewer flights, but still moving the same or more passengers. And so that's actually had a big impact on the amount of operations happening at the airport. And it's likely something to continue into the future. So that's why you see some of these forecast operations depress a little bit from previous forecasts and actually from previous peaks as well. Additionally, some other aspects impacting growth of passengers. There's more airlines operating at the airport, and they kind of continue to operate more and more. We see passenger leakage. What that means is essentially connecting flights that maybe you've connected in Chicago Midway or in other large hubs. Maybe you're choosing to connect here just because of capacity of our airport. Also, regional population growth is going to continue to drive more passengers at the airport. And so that's why we're seeing kind of that bigger growth in passenger activity than maybe we've seen in operations in the past as well. So what does that mean for the actual facilities at the airport? So part of this plan, right, so activity forecast really then move into what is needed to facilitate those activities in the future. And how this plan has really outlined the facilities is there's kind of separating the three tranches of the near term, the midterm, and the long term. Near term generally expected in the next 1 to 5 years projects, midterm 5 to 10 years or so, and then that long term is 5 or 10 plus years for those kind of projects. I'll point out some of these projects that maybe have more regional impact than some of the other ones. Minor airfield improvements seen here, but a pretty significant Terminal 2 expansion as seen here. This is something that's probably likely going to happen soon, potentially 11 new gates on the south side of Terminal 2 here. And also a pretty significant reworking of the curbside access to Terminal 2. Terminal 2 gets bigger. It's already, that curbside access is already kind of at capacity. And so there's going to need to be some improvements of capacity and circulation for Terminal 2. Additionally, the U.S. Postal Service site currently at the airport is scheduled for redevelopment, likely to be a new parking facility, which will increase parking spaces by about 3,200 spaces, and an expansion of the orange ramp at Terminal 2, which will add more spaces and potentially will have impacts to the LRT station because the LRT station is built within that ramp and potentially could improve it by enclosing it completely in this future parking improvement here. Moving on to the midterm projects. So some of these larger projects, again, that have potentially more regional significance. We are looking at a potential cargo capacity expansion. That's 25 on here. So that's on the west side of the airfield, close to Trunk Highway 77 and Longfellow Avenue here. That's likely going to be a 100,000 plus square foot facility, potentially for an Amazon dedicated cargo facility. Looking on the east side of the airport grounds, we have the Trunk Highway 5 and Post Road Interchange project. That's 212 on here. I'm looking to reconstruct the existing interchange, realignment, access roads, and potentially look at that as another access, improved access point for Terminal 2 as it continues to expand. And also another note here, the fixed base operators. So that's like the smaller private jets and air taxi airplanes that use the airport is likely to be moved to the north side to accommodate future Terminal 2 growth. And that will have new access off of 28th Avenue and 62 on the north side of the airport. Looking now at the longer term, so that 10 plus year horizon for projects, Terminal 2 will see its full build out expansion, which with 9 additional new gates on the north side to have its full expansion to 35 total gates. So Terminal 2 will be about doubled in size. And in the meantime, I didn't mention this on these project lists here, but Terminal 1 will be sort of right sized. As I mentioned, those regional jets are starting to move up to larger aircraft. And so those smaller regional gates will be consolidated for larger aircraft. So you're actually we'll be seeing less gates at Terminal 1 and considerably more at Terminal 2 to kind of maybe balance those two terminals a little bit more. In addition to that, 34th Avenue will see a reconstruction to improve circulation again to Terminal 2. And then also another large, longer term project here is a potential airside terminal connection. So that'd be behind security. And it would look like potentially a tram or some other technology to connect the two terminals behind security, which could in the future impact LRT operations between terminals and specifically, that necessary need for that nighttime LRT operation between the two terminals. If you have that airside connection, you may not need that anymore. So just something to note for regional impacts there for facilities. Looking forward, what does that mean for impacts to the neighboring communities here? So aircraft noise is probably one of the biggest impacts that most people know, especially related with MSP. So noise impacts are a major component of the environmental considerations of this plan. So MAC, following the FAA guidance, creates these annual noise contours of impacts of surrounding communities from those operations. Noise impacts are measured by something called DNL, which is known as the day-night average sound level. So this is a main metric through which we measure sound and compatibility around MST. The measure reflects a person's cumulative exposure to sound over a 24-hour period. So it's not necessarily checking what one airplane sounds like when it goes over to you. It's looking at the cumulative exposure to that sound over that 24-hour period. The council has a compatibility guidelines for what is considered prohibitive sound impacts for residential development. I include the link here, but it's included in the transportation policy plan as an appendix item as well. And that's called the Builder's Guide, and it kind of both guides ways to build facilities or properties to limit those impacts, and also how to avoid those impacts completely as well. So real quick, we look at these noise contours to kind of compare what they look like today to what they could look like or modeled to look like in 2040. So this black line here is the existing noise contours, and this furthest one out is the 60 DNL. So 60 DNL is about the threshold for where you need mitigation for sound impacts, and so that's why this is the first one here. So if you're within this contour, then you likely are eligible potentially for those noise mitigation improvements. And so you see here that 60 grows quite a little bit, about 30% over the 2040 horizon here. And so this is mainly, again, to kind of model as we look to update our comprehensive plans in the future, to be modeling and be aware of these noise contours, but to cite certain land use guidance if you have undeveloped land in your community. Looking at how this looks compared to existing land use. And so as I mentioned, kind of that land use, it's hard to see these lines here. I apologize for that. They're pretty hard to see, but you can kind of see where in Egan, where that undeveloped land was, they generally guided that for industrial and commercial development to kind of avoid those residential impacts, and kind of those more built up existing areas in Richfield and Minneapolis have, had that mitigation conducted by the MAC instead, as those homes and businesses already existed prior to the airport operating, certainly at the levels that it does today. Now, additional to the noise impacts, environmental considerations are also included in this comprehensive plan. It includes a high-level look at other environmental impacts, specifically water use, stormwater runoff, solid waste, and wastewater generation and emissions. The plan includes a high-level look at these impacts, but due to really the lack of changes from the previous comprehensive plan, this plan does not include a detailed analysis. It refers a lot to the 2030 plan, again, because as these existing conditions haven't changed a ton since that plan. MAC has acknowledged the need, so both council staff and Minneapolis staff have commented on the fact that these environmental considerations should be looked at again, and MAC has acknowledged the need to study these impacts further with future studies and environmental review with the council and these adjacent cities as partners. So once this comprehensive plan is adopted by the MAC, then we'll move in next to the environmental review period, where we then will kind of give a more detailed look at some of these potential environmental impacts from the preferred alternative being put forward in the comprehensive plan. Connected to that, the MAC is also very aggressive in its sustainability efforts on the campus specifically. So MAC has established sustainability targets for their campus and support facilities, including terminals and support facilities. That first one is to reduce their GHG emissions by 80% by 2030 from a 2015 baseline, and also to reduce water usage per passenger by 15% by 2030, and also finally to divert 75% of solid waste away from landfill. So whether it's recycling, composting, reusing, that's in their sustainability targets as well. And connected to that, so MAC has these targets for their own facilities. However, the actual aircraft operations is obviously something controlled by the airlines themselves. And Delta has also set sustainability targets for aircraft, which will impact MSP. So one of these ideas is called Sustainable Aviation Fuel, or SAF. So Delta has set SAF targets, which will look to first also rely on MSP as an SAF hub due to the state tax relief, which were recently established last year in the state legislature. These have the potential of reducing carbon emissions from the jet engine itself by 85%, so a pretty significant reduction in carbon emissions. And Delta is looking to have 10% of all their aviation fuel by 2030 be SAF, and it's likely to be higher at MSP MSP because it will be an SAF hub. And then by 2035, have 35% of all their fuel as that SAF, and again, likely higher MSP as it is one of their hubs. Connected to that as well, Delta is also committed to electrifying their ground vehicle fleet. And so they had set a target for 50% of their ground service vehicles at MSP to be electric by 2025. They already met that goal as far as last year. So they have a goal of 100% EV target. They don't have a date set for that, but likely at the pace that they're electrifying their fleets today, it's likely to be before 2030. However, there's going to be specialty vehicles that may or may not be able to be electrified. And so we may never be able to hit that 100% target. However, they are moving very quickly in that EV direction for most of their support vehicles on the campus. Talking about engagement real quick here. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there was pretty significant public engagement through this process. It was also delayed again due to COVID for about a year and a half, from early 2020 to late 2021. And so engagement meetings were held both before the COVID pause and after. And so kind of an outline of what some of these meetings entailed. So that the MAC has a committee called the Noise Oversight Committee, which had 6 meetings. The Planning Development Environment Committee of the MAC had 4 meetings about this plan. Their Stakeholder Advisory Panel met 6 times. They held 4 public experience MSP events, had 3 meetings with the City of Minneapolis, came to the Met Council prior to the consistency review for 3 meetings last year, and also included that 60-day public comment period last summer, which received 139 total comments, and the summary was included in the packet today. So I want to talk about relationship to regional policy real quick before we finish this off. So again, long-term comp plans are used as a basic input to council plans and policies. The 2040 MSP long-term comp plans anticipate steady growth in both passengers and operations through 2040, with significant sustainability efforts and adequate public engagement. There were no major items which represent significant impacts to the regional system or incompatible with regional policies. No new runways, no new additional measures to really increase or change that airfield capacity. MSP today is the major airport in the region, and that will not change. That will continue on with this plan. The plan includes all required elements for long-term comprehensive plans as found in the TPP in Appendix K at a high level. And again, further in-depth considerations from outlined projects, future water use, stormwater, wastewater, traffic impacts will be studied further in the next steps in the environmental review. And also considering relationship to the regional development guide. One of the main outcomes of policy direction is one of the outcomes of the regional development guide is prosperity outcome. And so that is really connected to the airport, and that a thriving regional aviation system, and specifically our major commercial airport hub, is an economic asset to the region, right? 20,000 employees, millions of dollars in additional economic revenue for the region, and providing businesses and people access to the global economy. The council does state that it will maintain, improve, and preserve the major airport facility in the region, and we do believe this plan is poising MSP well for the future. Now looking at next steps, so the next step immediately will be the Metropolitan formal review, which is what we are doing, kicking off today at TAC Planning. After that, would be moving on to the MAC board for their final adoption of the plan. And then once that's adopted, then later this year, they'll be moving on to that environmental review phase and also drafting their airport layout plan, which will be reviewed and approved by the Federal Aviation Administration. Following that, we move on to grant programming. We put projects into the CIP, and then we finally move on to engineering and design, and then finally construction in the future. So with that said, the requested action today is that the committee defined that the final draft MSP International Airport 2040 long-term comprehensive plan has both a multi-city impact as well as conforms to the council systems and is consistent with council policies. With that, I'll open up the questions. And again, we do have Eric and Dana here with us from MAC to answer any specific technical or other questions that any folks may have. So open it up and stop presenting as well.
Thanks, Joe. It looks like Kathleen has a question right out of the gate.
Hi, thank you. It's not a question, it's more a comment. The city submitted detailed comments back in August on the long range plan, so I won't reiterate them in full, but I just did want to uplift one of the comments related to the air quality analysis and just from our perspective, the need to have more updated data that really reflects the airport's overall impact and future predicted impact in terms of air quality. The plan refers to a study done 10 years ago, and data that's even older. So really looking at those specific impacts would be important. Understanding that the regions in a, is not in a non-attainment area, it's still really important to look at the specific outputs from the airport and continuing the work with the airport carbon accreditation program to reduce overall emissions from the total area.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members, thank you for that comment. We appreciate the comments, so noted. We will continue to evaluate emissions, especially when we get through the environmental review process comprehensively that we anticipate completing at the completion of this long-term plan. So the long-term plan itself looks at things from kind of that 30,000 foot view holistically in terms of infrastructure need, but your point is very much noted that we need to consider the environmental impacts to potential development of the airport. One other thing to note too, as comparison, and Joe, you did an excellent job encapsulating the flavor of this long-term plan. But one thing I want to re-emphasize is that this long-term plan, as compared to the previous long-term plan in terms of aircraft activity, is much less substantial in terms of aircraft operations, at least from a forecast perspective. And then we have the COVID recovery, as well as a change in aircraft fleet and type of aircraft that are getting quieter, more fuel efficient. We're also working progressively for sustainable aviation fuel, which I think was touched on, but that's also an area of emphasis that our sustainability group is a part of. So we're actively pursuing, to your point, we're very conscious of the emissions portion of not just long-term planning, but MAC holistically as a whole, as an agenda. But your comment is so noted. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And just one other quick thing, and in particular, like beyond just, inclusive of like different types of pollutants as well, particulate matter, black carbon, so on. So thank you for that response. Appreciate it. And look forward to working and keeping abreast of those changes. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, thank you. Appreciate the feedback.
Yeah. This is Innocent AO from the MPC here. I just wanted to say that we also supported the comment that City of Minneapolis submitted in regards to the old data that we use for analysis that was done. I know we are on attainment area for now, but the EPA is currently working on straightening some of the standard, especially to done that for PM 2.5, and they're working on ozone standard also. In a lot of changes have been done in terms of multi-pollutant changes that they do at the federal level, and also that reflects what is going on in the state level also, because we PCA staff are working on new rule making on cumulative impacts. There's one on noise impacts, auto impacts, and also toxic rulemaking and reporting. So there are a lot of changes that are undergoing now in the state. So if you're working on a new project like that, you can contact us if you need updated information in terms of emissions or MOVE model. Then we can work with you to supply that instead of using data that were prepared over 10 years ago, because things are changing. That's just what I have.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members, I appreciate echoing a similar comment. And I want to emphasize too and reiterate that we're required by federal and state environmental review law that we adhere to federal and state environmental processes before we get into any design and construction of proposed projects that come out of the long-term plan. So again, we're looking at things from a high level conceptual. We can't take out of the preferred plan that Joe walked through today. We can't take that to any sort of design and construction immediately. We have to go through the environmental review process from federal, state perspective, and the design needs to occur as well. So everything is very high level conceptual at this point. And as we get through COVID recovery, aircraft activity increases, and then driving the demand for some of these particular projects, that would then trigger the need for that environmental review and process for design and construction. And I'll just also say too, didn't talk much about the capital improvement program, but this long-term plan preferred alternative by and large is off of our capital improvement program. And so until we have that environmental review process complete, these projects won't show up on any sort of capital improvement program process from our standpoint either. So there's a number of hurdles that we have to get through. Environmentally is definitely the first one before any of these projects would be in some sort of semblance of concept for design.
Thank you for the questions and Eric for the responses. Do we have any additional questions or discussion?
Madam Chair, again, this is Innocent here. I would just like to add that we would like to give some type of credit to Mark on some of the proposal that is showing on under sustainability, where part of it a reduction of or the target they set up for reduction of greenhouse gas, and also on the fuel reduction and the use of electric equipment and vehicles at the airport that would help to reduce general emissions around that area. So we appreciate what they're doing in general sustainability program that is ongoing now at the airport. Thank you.
Thanks, Innocent. All right, I don't see any other further questions. It is a business item. The recommended motion from staff is that TAC Planning recommend the determination, that the draft MSP International Airport has an area-wide and multi-community effect and is consistent with the Metropolitan Council Comprehensive Development Guide. Would anyone like to move that or something else? Anyone?
Madam Chair, this is Kevin Roggenbuck. I'll move approval of this item.
All right, thanks, Kevin. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Larson, second.
Okay, thank you. That Michael Larson, is that right? On the second. All right. Any further discussion? Okay, thanks. Jed, do you want to take the roll then?
Struve.
Yes.
Johansson.
Aye.
Jack Forsland. Howley. Minico.
Aye.
Atkins.
Aye.
Eric Giles. Gillis? Excuse me if I said your name wrong.
It's okay. It's Gillis. Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Haney.
Aye.
Mayel. Bruder.
Aye.
Ao.
Hi.
Rockenbuck.
Aye.
Dermody. Dill.
Aye.
Almeida.
Aye.
Kitsukos.
Aye.
Alan.
Aye.
Madam Chair, there were 15 ayes, no nos, and no abstentions.
Thanks, Jed. We do not have any information items today. Does anyone on the committee have any other business? All right, so seeing none, Jed, sorry, do we just adjourn? Do we need to do a motion?
We just adjourned.
Okay, we will adjourn the meeting. Thanks everyone for coming, and we will see you next month.